Again, aloha and welcome to the November um, quarterly talking circle session for NYCP. I'm so glad you folks could all make it. Let's go ahead and get disclaimed before we move on.
This presentation was produced under U.S. Department of Education contract number GS00F115CA with Synergy Enterprises, Inc. The views expressed herein do not necessarily represent the positions or policies of the U.S. Department of Education. No official endorsement by the U.S. Department of Education of any product, commodity, service, or enterprise mentioned herein is intended or should be inferred.
All right. Now that we've got disclaimed, we can go ahead and look at what we'll be talking about today. Again, this is a talking circle, so this is really a time for us to share some information with you regarding maybe some grant requirements coming up, some updates on information, but primarily it's about you folks talking together and sharing what you're doing, what you're learning, and maybe even some of your challenges, and asking your peer grantees how they're doing it. So we're going to be some of the information we're going to be sharing is around your budget revisions that are due next week. The other one, we're going to do some program sharing and then go through some upcoming events. Okay. So today we're joined by Donna Busso, your NYCP program officer. Hi, Donna.
Hi everybody. Glad you all can make it.
Awesome. And then, of course, I'm Olani. I will be your facilitator today. Again, because this is a talking circle, when we get to the discussion part, you please feel free to unmute yourself and to share as we get into the discussion. But before we get there, we just wanted to remind everyone that your year 4 budget revisions are due. Your budget revision will be only for year 4. And please use your optional budget revision form, and we'll take a look at that in just a bit. It is due Wednesday, November 17th, so that is next week, Wednesday. And the form, again, we'll be looking at that, that you'll be completing is the NYCP optional budget revision form. Just in case you missed out on that first due date, is that it is due next Wednesday, November 17th. You will submit this via email directly to Donna Busso, your program officer. Right there at the bottom is her email, so you want to go ahead and submit that form to her directly to her.
So real quick, Alani, Mandy, you asked if you needed to submit a budget revision for your no cost extension year. I would say go ahead and send that to me. Because of the no cost extension, we do have to look at the remaining budget. So if you could go ahead and send me one, we can talk about one, we can get on a one-on-one meeting and we can work on that together if you would like.
Awesome. Thanks, Donna, for addressing that right there. Awesome. So what you do want to do is you do want to look at your GAN, again, if you haven't done so yet, or maybe relook at it to look at Block 7. You want to look at what your total award is, including funds being carried over from the previous year. You want to make sure that you have both the current grant funds as well as any carryover funds. This is the optional budget revision form for NYCP. You can tell, I know some of you or several of you have multiple grants. You want to look at the top of the form, and it will have the appropriate program name. Okay? And then what you want to do is you can see all of the different columns. You want to make sure and go ahead and complete each budget category: personnel, fringe, travel, equipment, supplies, contractual, and other. You want to make sure that you had your existing grant budget, and then with any of the carryover funds, you want to make sure that that's reflected in your requested revised budget. And so that might be where you had maybe a lot of travel put into your original budget, and you know that you're going to be maybe doing less. You want to be able to make that revision in the requested revised budget columns. And those columns can be identified by the green shading of the three columns. And then the existing budget should be in those sort of like orange colored. I did want to show you a question that comes up very frequently is around maneuvering in this actual document. And so let's go and look at that actual Excel document. Okay, so what you should be seeing right now, hold on, let me move this over. I've got a bunch of things on my screen. Okay, so if you want to, many of you want to add or need to add additional rows in your form. So the way you do that is you go down to, so you go to personnel. Let me see, get my cursor here. Let me move things around. So you go down to the budget category personnel. What you want to do is take this last expenditure row, and you want to go ahead and copy and paste that or insert that into the row right above it. So let's see, oops, sorry, see if I can do this. Yeah, sorry. So what you want to do is, I'm sorry, this is sharing the wrong document. Let me get there. Okay, so what you want to see is that you would go ahead and highlight this line right here, this bottom row under personnel, and then insert a row right above it. If you go ahead and do some, copy this row and insert below, it won't hold the calculations that are automatically put in that into the form. And you really want to maintain the integrity of the calculations in this form, because it will help both you and the program officer be able to look and see any needs that are needed in the budget revision. Okay, so are there any questions regarding that form? If not, we can move on. So we are gathered here together as the NYC purposes. Really the purpose of these grants are to expand access to high quality education and improve college and career readiness for Native youth. Also evidence-based activities, strategies, and or interventions. And then to empower families and individuals to choose a high quality education. And as you can see, I've sort of bolded and recolored some key phrases here. One is high quality education, the other college and career readiness, and then the third evidence-based. We're going to dig into these a little bit and have a discussion around these three key areas and some strategies that can maybe help us accomplish that. So when we think about high quality education, both from NYCP perspective as well as national research, these are some key elements that would be present in a high quality education program. Now, some of you may be actually providing services. Your NYCP grant might actually be in schools during the regular 8 to 2 hours, but some of you might also be out of school and in maybe after school program, intersession, or other sort of forms of delivery. But when we think about high quality education, we need to think about those various environments. And so as we can see, student engagement, high expectations, that's of both students as well as teachers, shared and clear focus, effective leadership, high levels of collaboration and communication, curriculum, instruction, and assessment aligned with standards. Now, that one, we normally think of like a regular school setting, but even if you're doing maybe after school or doing a college prep, your curriculum or your programs should all have, whether it's, it's activities, and or any curriculum, should all be aligned to what you are trying to accomplish, and that is measured by, through your assessments. uh, Also, frequent monitoring of learning and teaching. So whether, again, if you're in a traditional school setting or outside, there should be regular, uh, monitoring of your staff and the learning of students. Okay, so I'm getting a message that I might need to adjust your view to the slides. Um, Sorry. Uh, Focused professional development and supportive learning environment, high levels of family and community involvement. Um, oh, I see. Thank you. There we go. Can you see now my PowerPoint? Sorry, I was still on the optional budget form. So I hope if you can message me to let me know if you can see, this. It says high quality education. That'd be really super helpful. Um, so again, these are the elements. Also supporting learning environment and high levels of family and community involvement. So let's have a little discussion. When you think about your programs, what do these elements look like in action? And the second question really is are there other indicators of a high quality education not listed that you think are maybe relate or are specific to Native communities that you serve? You can go ahead and, come off of mute to share.
Hey, Jamie, sorry, Alani. I see a question. Jamie has the budget revision form is optional. Can they still submit another format? You can submit any format you want. This budget revision, it is an optional form. So if you don't want to send it, if you have something else, you can definitely send something else. Our awesome synergy team created that budget form, and it has some really cool, that calculates things out for you. But of course, if you have something else, you may submit it. Just make sure you're still hitting all the points that Olani is going over right now.
Thanks, Donna.
Thank you.
Okay, so again, when we think, let me go back to that slide with all of the high quality education elements. When you think of your program, and you think of your Native community, are there maybe some things in working with Native community that are not listed here that you think, add and create a high quality education program in Native communities? Again, you can go ahead and come off of mute. Okay, I see, sharing in the chat around trauma-informed staff and training. Yes, that's really, key. There's more and more, work being done around that, because of COVID. Although, for a lot of indigenous communities, there was trauma before, and so it's great to have those resources now. I was wondering, when you think about like supportive learning environments, I was thinking maybe also, being outside and being, hands-on, working, outside in the environment might be another element. There's another social emotional learning strategies to build resilience. Yep, that's a very important piece that's now sort of coming to light when we think about key elements in high quality education. Being aware of students' social and emotional as sort of moving us from just the academics to the whole child, you know. Family resources, yes. Engaging the family in the learning, and also, I think not just from school to family, but also from family to school, right? Or from family to program, where families can inform and also provide learning environments as well. Awesome. Diversity, inclusion, and cultural responsiveness in the learning environment. Yeah, I mean, that really helps to create a supportive learning environment when students can feel, can see different types of students and know that they are included. Um, yeah, good stuff. Really good stuff. When it comes also to, when you think about high expectations, I know many of you have at the beginning of your program day or to start off a class, you have sort of protocol that you engage the students in. You know, having the students be able to engage in protocol could be a level of, could be a high expectation that you would include. Not just what you would say are traditional academic expectations. Awesome. Thanks for sharing, you guys. Um, you please feel free to come off of mute anytime, so you can expand on your thoughts being shared in chat. Anyone else have anything or want to come off of uh, mute and share?
I'll share really quick. Um, my name is Jami Jones. I'm the program director for Fairbanks Native Association, Johnson O'Malley. I just wanted to share what we've been doing in action to help foster, the Native communities that we serve and the education services that we provide to the students.
Awesome.
We have been building close partnerships and maintaining those with our school district departments, more specifically through the federal programs, whether it's Alaska Native education, after school programs, and like McKinney-Vento, which is for homeless students,
Yeah.
especially through our events that we provide. We really try to strive to make it a community event so that we can reach out to families at schools that we don't serve. And, with COVID, it's been a struggle, but we've been able to implement events using the safety protocols that have been put in place, such as masks and social distancing in any way possible that we can to keep the event happening.
Yeah.
But our main goal with these events is really to celebrate the different cultures, whether it's Alaska Native or American Indian. And it's been really rewarding to see that, our school district is also in line with that goal. And having that show, different cultures celebrated and providing cultural activity kits for families to do with their students, and having Molly of Denali there. We have a mascot in our community of Molly of Denali. It we've been it's really great way to bring everyone together. You from the home environment, from the school to the community, and just really build upon this foundation that we have started.
Mm-hmm.
Cultural responsiveness, not just in the schools, but community wide. So it's a really great way for our program to get out there and, also introduce the services that we provide to the students and any way that we can help support their education in and outside the home. It's been really rewarding.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I love to hear your folks' stories about, given the challenges of COVID, how you have sort of adapted and still sort of moved forward to meet the community needs, and really sort of creating some, I think, some innovation around like family engagement, right? And instruction, where you're sending the kids home, and how do you engage community. So that's really exciting. And it sounds like you kind of have two things going on. One is to engage families and communities, and connect the school community, but also to use it as a way to introduce the services that you provide. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. You know, it's hard to reach out to everybody and get the word out just based through email or word of mouth. So, meeting people face to face, and also, you know, giving them the resources that they might need and any information. We have introductory letters outlining the services that we provide and handing those out. And they could put a face to a name and say, okay, if, you know, my student, it gets in your program, here's what you can expect to be
Yeah.
helped with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. I really think again that might be another element of high quality, particularly, and I don't say just in Native community, but particularly in Native community, is relationship, right? I mean, one of the key things in a Native community is having relationship, seeing a face, and again, I don't think it's just for Native parents or students, but seeing a face, feeling comfortable with that person, makes you want to do more and engage more. So that's awesome. Thanks for sharing, Jamie. Okay, so then when we think about evidence based, these are some of the elements that come up both in the NYCP when they talk about, primarily when NYCP talks about evidence based. It demonstrates this statistically significant effect on improving student outcomes, and or relative outcomes based, strong evidence from at least one well designed and well implemented study, uh, moderate evidence from at least one, again, well designed, and so two different types, right? One that is either strong or moderate. Promising evidence from at least one well designed and well implemented correlation study. Demonstrates a rationale based on high quality research findings or positive evaluation, and then includes ongoing efforts to examine the effects of such activity. Now, I know this can be a challenge sometimes, connecting what you're doing in your program or what you intend to do with the body of research that is out there. We know that a lot of times in Native communities, we lack sort of that body of research out there. And so I want to just get an opportunity for us to sort of talk about this challenge, but also talk about maybe how some of you are addressing it. Maybe you are creating your own evaluation. Maybe you found resources that nobody else has found that you'd like to share. And so really the discussion here is, how do you identify or show that you are providing evidence-based activities, strategies, and interventions? Again, you can go ahead and go off mute. Now, we're not just, sometimes we want to talk about the challenges, but let's also share some of maybe the resources that you used, and or are creating. While you folks are writing that, either typing that into the chat or thinking about what you are doing, does anybody want to come off of mute and share maybe the challenges that you face as far as collecting and identifying the evidence that is out there?
Hey, Alani, this is Trinidad Yazzie.
Hi.
I just wanted to quickly share kind of what our team has been doing. This particular area would be the college and career focus of our grant. And we had been struggling with the data. So the person in charge of that had reached out to the vendor who's really helping us with collection, who helps us with our reports, stuff like that. So they created an Excel sheet tracking divide or sheet for them to really track down, okay, how many times are we going to the local high schools? How, because in Salt River here, unfortunately, the high school had closed down. So students are attending surrounding areas.
Yeah.
So, and our higher education department are going to surrounding schools, which is at least 4 to 5 different little cities nearby. So with this tracking, it's really going to narrow down and really that evidence-based part, really keep track of which students, which high schools, which was it college and career, what specifically were they talking about? Was it scholarships? Was it helping them fill out applications, stuff like that? And really they're focusing with not just the student, but their families too.
Nice.
So kind of like what everybody was saying in the chat, really just resources available, really pushing that and just what they need and trying to meet that. So that's one way, I guess we're trying to do that a lot better, keeping track of it. And I know with that particular department, they're having what they call Friday chats, which they started just this month, earlier on Fridays, obviously, but again, with those college and career resources. And they're really, I think their first one that they had was really successful. So it's really helping us to meet that particular goal. So I think that's something that's really going to help us in the long run.
Yeah. Can I ask you a further question?
Sure.
So the Friday chats, what happens during those chats? Is that with students or?
It's mainly with students because the two representatives in charge of that work in the higher education department, Davina Leon, she is our career college coordinator person. And they reach out to students at all these different I believe it's for 1 or 2 high schools specifically. Students sign up and then it's kind of like this format where it's virtual. So students join to where they said this last time the turnout was really great. Whereas before in past, during the pandemic, stuff like that, where numbers were really low. So again, just with this one, it's starting off really well. And then here within the community, they have another, what they call Teen Wolf. Same thing, meetings, stuff like that, where it's really collaborating, not with just students, but with families. So it's really including different things like that. And with college and career, with their resources here within the community, they have a lot of really good resources. And we don't know if it's just they're not aware of it. So I think that's kind of why they're really reaching out to not only just the students, but the high schools, their guidance counselors, even the local community colleges, those counselors as well, letting them know, hey, these students have these different resources. So it just makes it easier for the students and their families.
Nice. Thanks for sharing and expanding on that. That's such a great resource. It sounds like you are doing some homegrown, evidence-based, creating your own evidence, which I think a lot of programs have to do because there is not necessarily the research out there for, in particular, Native communities. I mean, I think sometimes we can get sort of large data when it looks at sort of like students overall. But when you want to drill down into what is impacting Native students, there's a little less out there. Anyone else want to share maybe what you folks are doing as it relates to either, again, creating your own evidence, maybe some resources you've used, or even maybe a challenge that you'd like to throw out to your peers here to maybe get some support and feedback? Okay. All right. Well, I think this area is a real sort of like hotspot area for a lot of your programs, and there's lots of exciting, I think, work that you folks are doing that if you wanted to track over time could probably create your own research and evidence-based programs. I know several of you are partnering with universities and even evaluators to create that evidence. So if there is no one else who wants to share, let's move on to the other area where we want to dig into a little bit, is around college and career readiness. What does that mean? Now, in general, this is a definition of college and career readiness. Really, it refers to the knowledge, skills, and dispositions that students need to be successful in post-secondary education and or training that leads to gainful employment. I know what we were just talking about was about college and career readiness, and one of the key things was engaging the family. And so, again, I don't think this is exclusive to Native communities, but it is definitely a thing in Native communities, is that when a student goes to college, the family sometimes goes to college as well. A lot of our students may be first generation going to college. And so learning about the whole process of being able to go to college or even to training programs, engaging the family is probably a best practice. I'd love to hear from you folks about maybe some of the things that you are doing as it relates to college and career readiness that may be not what people normally think about college and career readiness. I know most of the time we're thinking about, prepping for SAT or ACTs, we're thinking about the GPA or the math or reading levels. But what are some of the other things you folks are working on to get your students college and career ready? Again, go out. You can go ahead and go off mute or put in the chat any of the activities that you are engaged in.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
This is Mandy. I'm in southern Louisiana, where we were just devastated by Hurricane Ida. Um, we Two of our high schools are pretty much gone, so we're going through a lot right now.
Yeah.
But prior to COVID, we were able to do some things I thought were helpful to the families. Is we would have a college night, and fortunately, we do have a 2-year and a 4-year college within about a 30-mile radius of our school district. So we would get them to come in and present and answer questions the students and parents would have about, what were the requirements for entry, how would they go about scheduling. A big thing that they had questions about was financial aid. And that was very helpful for both the parents and students to actually, get actual amounts of what it would cost to go to college, even locally. So I think that that was a good way to kind of prepare them as well as the parents, and what are some resources they had. And they always were, could reach out to the presenters that participated from those colleges and universities. A lot of times we also would invite the high school counselor to assist as well, because they know a lot about what students need to move on to that next level. So I also would encourage you to, if you have any type of college night where parents and students are involved, include your high school counselors that can provide additional guidance of, criteria or things that they may need in your state to move on to that next higher education.
Thank you. Thank you for that key point. Again, making sure that all the dots are connected, right? I mean, sometimes you go to those fairs and then nothing comes, all these pamphlets come back, but no action happens. And so having that high school counselor is really, that's a great idea. Thanks for that suggestion. Others want to sort of talk about maybe, again, in your Native communities, are there, what are the maybe innovative things you folks are doing to connect Native Americans and Alaska Natives into the college and career readiness?
Hi, this is Victor from San Ynez Chumash in California.
Hi, Victor.
Hi, I'm fairly new to my position, but one of the things that we are going to start calendar year next year is a college and career readiness counselor that we contract with from the community. We're lucky to have a member who spent her career in college doing some advising. So we're going to contract with her so she can meet, follow up with students, first of all, that are in college, just as a check-in to see how they're doing, because she's familiar with some of the pitfalls that some of the students might face, as well as having workshops for high school students to help them prepare for college and what they're going to need to get in line. But then we're also looking at, we want to somehow come up with a system to evaluate who's not going to school, and school meaning higher education, to see how we might be able to guide them maybe into vocational trade schools or some other skill set or education that might help them out. So we want to broaden not just the college focus for ourselves, but also the career readiness and looking at some alternatives, because we think that's kind of underserved or not really identified. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. There was another comment in the chat. Said, due to COVID, we created our college and career presenters on a jump drive. Oh, with approximately 4 to 6 native presenters on each. Presenters would give their experiences as completing high school and their college choices, then highlighting their challenges, ending with their career choice. Awesome. Our staff will include a presentation each month. Some of our presenters chose career tech. Oh, nice. That's a really great innovative idea when you're thinking about how to utilize technology. And they're using a jump drive to both record and I guess and share and disseminate. That's awesome. Um, yeah, I mean, it just amazes me, like both on the technology side as well as on, really thinking about your program and how you're gonna adjust it to meet the demands of COVID. It's just been amazing. Anyone else want to share around college and career readiness? Maybe something you're doing. Oh, also in the chat is we're working on post-secondary videos with school employees. Oh, that's cool. Again, that goes, videotaping employees of the school is really important. Again, it's that relationship thing for Native students uh, that's really important, and helps to create a sense of community in a large maybe university or even in a trainings program. That's great. Thanks for sharing. I know, what was it, last year we did a, a presentation on virtual field trips. And one of the things that, during COVID, students, your programs weren't able to get out and go to do your college visits. But on that, we found a resource that you can actually do a virtual college visit. And it doesn't have every university or college, but it does have quite a few. And so I might be able to, at the end of this, sort of go back and find that video for you and that resource, and we can include that in, just in case you're not able to get out. And also, maybe sometimes it's cost prohibitive to take your students from, Alaska to the East Coast, where maybe they want to go to school. So that was a great resource for doing that. Okay, let's move on. So, in our Native communities, when we think about high quality education, evidence based activities, and college and career readiness, what are the other considerations we need to think about when it comes to the communities that we serve? Is there anything else we need to maybe add to this list or think about in terms of how these three elements sort of either contribute or serve the communities that we serve? Oh, I just see in the chat that we collected nurse practitioners, truck drivers, horse trainer, military branches. Awesome. So many more. That's so great. I mean, because I think a lot of times we get stuck in the college and we need to do more work in the career, right? So that's an awesome resource. So again, when we think about our Native communities, are there other considerations we need to think about when serving Native communities?
Hi, my name is Wendy Jefferson. I think a lot of our students, when we think of career and college readiness, a lot of us think FAFSA, think things of that nature, more on the college focus. But I think we need to also show the students, like give them people skills, soft skills. I think I think it's helpful for them to go through an interview process, just because some of our students, they go through these, they want to go through like a certificate training program versus like a 4-year college. So I think it's important for them to have that experience of kind of starting into the workforce, if you will, resumes, interviewing, people skills. I think we kind of forget that portion a lot when we think of college and career, because I think a lot of us are more focused on the career part versus them going into the workforce.
Great point. I really, when you think about college and career, I mean, let's go back to that definition, the dispositions, right? The skills. It's beyond like the math and the reading, but it's also, how do you conduct yourself? How do you deal with maybe disagreements, differences of opinion? Again, going back to earlier, we were talking about high quality, diversity, inclusion, even, bank accounts, how to do, right? Not too many of us write checks anymore, but how do you manage the whole financial piece? Once you get a career and you have a job, how do you then sustain yourself and your future family financially? Those are all really important skills that are connected to college and career readiness and success. So great point. Thanks for pointing that out. Anyone else?
Hey, Alani, this is Trini again, real quick.
Oh, go for it. Go for it.
I know one piece that we have a challenge with is with college and career is really tying in the culture piece. I know we get some students, even past former students who myself personally run into, and how they struggled going to, let's say, because I know one person had mentioned the colleges are within 30 miles close distance, but some go out of state.
Yeah.
And that culture shock, and then you're basically, I don't want to say you're living two different worlds, but when you go home, it's different. When you go back to school, it's different. So that balancing act, that's something where, how do you explain that to high school students? You might come across this. So that's, I guess, an area where we kind of struggle with that. And if other grantees out there have suggestions, please put that in the chat box, because that's something we try to, we know it's there, but it's just really, how do you say that? And then just with the community we're in, it's so small, it means something different to everybody. So it's really hard for us to say, because we're not from this community, to say, oh, this is what it's going to be.
Yeah.
So
great point. Is anybody else dealing with that, had to deal with that challenge and came with some, or is working on some solutions around that? Oh, looks like Jami is oh great. Jami's sharing about the soft skill piece. Awesome. As it relates to sort of this, walking into worlds, like you said, has anybody had to deal with that, or how are you preparing your students for that? If I can put in my 2 cents, I know that is definitely the case for Native Hawaiians, and particularly those who have gone away. What some of the scholarships that primarily focus for Native Hawaiians is they try to build a community in the universities that Native Hawaiians go to, that there's a large number of Native Hawaiians, which is a lot of universities on the West Coast because it's closer to home. But so that's some way that programs have, I've seen some programs do that and started to create a club in those universities, and even extend out to Pacific Islanders. So not just Native Hawaiians, but also Pacific Islanders. We also have in the chat create a mentorship program where students who have gone off to college pair up. Yeah, okay, that's and are planning. Yeah, to provide a window that is a world of it. Yes, that's great. So maybe a student is gone already, and then pairing them up and creating a mentorship relationship. Which is sort of like, you know how you do your orientation on campus with like the large group, and then to also have a mentor who will be sort of your freshman pal, to walk you through the steps and get you acclimated. That's always helpful. Anyone else maybe trying to has had this challenge and came up with something? All right, let's, if you have any more ideas, just go ahead and put that in the chat. And thank you again for sharing. Well, one of the things that there is actually evidence around is around the impact of native language and culture in instruction. And what the research shows is that there is a connection between language and culture and actually academic performance. And so there, when environment between the school community, language and culture is alike or like the culture and language of the community, it does contribute to the success of formal learning. Also, as it relates to native language and culture instruction, there's strong evidence that both of those elements do improve academic performance, decrease dropout rates, improve school attendance rates, actually decrease clinical symptoms, and create improved personal behavior. Again, I think a lot of, in some of those studies, they make a correlation with, you know, again, the similarity of environment from community or home with the actual school community, and that it reflects each other. So as it relates to indigenous language or native language learning continuum, this is sort of the continuum. One of them is where you have electives, where basically, you know, it's a course, a language course or a culture course that a student gets to select as part of their learning. The other one is maybe a bilingual environment where language is happening, maybe two languages, English and the native language, is happening in the same program day or program time. The other one is partial immersion, and that's really where maybe you have the native language as being sort of the primary language in instruction, and then you also provide English language instruction as well as an actual course. And then there's full immersion, where everything, all content is taught in the native language. And of course, along these lines, when it comes to culture-based, this is really looking at language, there are varying degrees of culture education. And so there's a poll that's going to be popping up that really is, maybe you are doing some language instruction in your programs. If so, which best describes your program? Elective, bilingual, partial immersion, and or full immersion? Is the poll popping up? Sorry, I can't see it. Oh, I don't see. Let me, oh, there it is. Okay, looks like right now, of those who are actually providing language instruction, most of them are, well, it looks like it's a tie between elective and partial immersion. Great. Thanks for sharing. So it looks like, well, actually elective is pulling out in front. We have more people who are providing native language as an elective. Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for participating in the poll. And so if you are providing native language instruction, what we're going to do right now is we're going to go ahead and annotate. And so if you can, at the top of your screen, you should see a little green sort of bar that says Olani is screen sharing. What you want to do is sort of hover over that, and a toolbar should actually come down. Now, in that toolbar, there should be like a pencil like I guess icon that's underneath. It says annotate. You want to click there. Um, if you don't have that on the toolbar, you want to maybe go over to more and click on the more button and look for annotate in that. So basically, if you are providing native language instruction, if you could go ahead and click on the annotate button and write down the native language that you are instructing. If you can't, maybe you can't access the annotate, you can go ahead and put that in chat. Okay, awesome. Thanks for sharing. Anybody having trouble with annotation? You can go ahead and put that in chat. Again, you want to go up to the top and look at where it says Olani is sharing the screen. And there should be a tool. If not, you can go ahead and put the native language in the chat. Okay. Well, moving right along. So we have one, oh, I see. Oh, here we go. I had to wait a second. Awesome. This is great. I think one of the things is, we don't always know, and sometimes in your in the grant application or proposal, you haven't sort of called out the particular language. So this is really helpful to be able to collect this, to see how OIE grants and the variety of grants that it has and programs it has are affecting native language maintenance and preservation. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and save that. I want to keep that. That's some good stuff. Thank you. Thanks everyone for sharing. I'm gonna go ahead, give you a couple more seconds, and then I'm gonna go and clear the annotation and move on to our next slide. Alrighty, here I go. I'm clearing. Again, you can go ahead and include in the chat any language that you weren't able to get up on the annotation. Alrighty, let's move on. Oopsie. Okay, so again, as we saw with some of the research I was sharing, native language and culture does have an impact on student learning. And so as far as native language goes, this is the time again for us to discuss and hear from each other how you are providing access to native languages.
Hi, this is Wendy. Part of our grant here in Salt River, we have a partnership with Unite for Literacy where we create mini books, what we call mini books. And some of those books are culture related, meaning they have the language. It's kind of hard getting authors just because of the language portion, but we do have a handful of books that are either in O'odham or Piposh. And those are given out to the communities and students.
That's awesome. I love to hear about Native communities creating their own, literature and books. Such a necessary resource. Thanks for sharing.
And we also have a digital library where these books are placed. So those books that are within that are the language, we do have people within the community that translate those for us as well, so people can actually hear them. They're simple books, but they're really great.
That's amazing. And how does your community get access to that resource?
Well, with the partnership we have with Unite for Literacy, they kind of have it in addition to making help us create mini books. They have a digital library.
Wow.
So we have kind of like a web page, I guess, that's specifically for the Salt River community. And there is Trini did put it in the chat box. So that's how we have the digital library.
Nice. I was just going to ask you, could you share that? It's just really great to see, communities coming together to provide that resource. That's great. I can't wait to check it out. Is it accessible by anyone, or do you need a membership or?
Yeah, this one is public.
Oh, cool. Nice.
We do have the option of also closing it to where there's a passcode, but the one we use that is with the one that's in the chat is public.
Yeah, nice. Okay, great. I can't wait to look forward to checking that out. And so, maybe with you or with anyone else, how do you know, or are you even looking at sort of what success looks like for your native language program? And how do you know if you are achieving that level of language learning or language success? So I know for some of you, language success may mean a student, since it's an elective, may mean a student being able to introduce themselves and do a greeting in their native language. For others, it's a greeting, being able to introduce themselves, which also includes a short genealogy and place. I would say recognition, but sort of like where their family comes from. If you folks participated yesterday in the National Native American Heritage Celebration for OIE, at the beginning there was a young lady from Navajo Prep, and I thought it was really amazing and interesting to listen to her introduce herself, and you could really tell, I could really see the commonalities between Native people in the way that they introduce themselves in their native language, both with introducing themselves as a name, but also introducing their genealogy and connecting that genealogy to place and to environmental, I want to say like phenomena like rain, wind, geographic location. Are any of you looking at that skill being developed with your students as it relates to native languages? Or maybe there's another skill.
So, are we still on the native languages?
Yeah, we are. Sorry, my thing just moved.
So one way that we're providing access is we have been able to utilize the resources that have been provided by different Native corporations in Alaska, because they are also doing their own language inclusion and learning materials. So they have YouTube channels, free recordings demonstrating, common phrases in different Alaska Native languages.
Yeah.
And also their own curriculum. Our university also has a lot of dictionaries in over 100 different languages within Alaska. So we've been grateful to be able to utilize those resources and share those with our students and families.
Nice.
But being able to measure how much they're learning. We haven't been able to do that right now. We've just been sharing resources and doing partial language lessons in classrooms.
That's great. That's great. I see also Wendy sharing that there's traditional songs and storytelling. Yeah, even if like when you're integrating those two pieces together, right? It's hard to do storytelling without having the language piece of it, right? Because of even just place names or character names are a part of that, and so those are all really important pieces. Awesome. Again, thanks for sharing. Now, when we get to cultural activities, a lot of times it's difficult to do language, to pull language and culture apart, particularly when you are maybe providing some cultural activities. And so I just sort of wanted to ask, I mean, are you folks doing cultural activities? And if so, what are what different sort of activities are you providing and experiences are you providing as it relates to culture-based learning? And maybe are any of your cultural activities sort of embedding or are embedded in what we would consider traditional academic content, for example, science or math, or even like literacy? Also, I just wanted to maybe go back to an earlier conversation we were having around college and career, and how are maybe somebody is integrating cultural activities into college and career readiness. What are you doing in those areas, and maybe you would mind sharing for others to learn. Again, you can go off of mute or go ahead and put it in the chat. Okay, silence. One of the things uh, I'll just give you an example from my experience. One of the, I think, easier traditional content areas to embed culture in is science, because particularly when you think about environmental science, because so many of our practices are connected to the environment, knowing our wind, rain, rocks, soil, colors, all of those language, and also the practices. It wasn't like our ancestors went out to Walmart to buy something. They actually had to cultivate the plant to create, to harvest, and then to create into an actual product. And all of those are seen as cultural activities or practices, but they also embed sort of naturally science in there. Maybe some of you folks are doing things in that area, activities in that area. No? Okay. The other one I just want to sort of go back to conversations we were having is around traditional songs and storytelling that Wendy shared in the language. Again, that is a cultural practice, and it's actually a literacy practice, right? And a communication. So it does sort of cross over into what you would say is traditional academic content. Okay, so if there's nothing going on there, we'll move on. Are there any questions that you folks have as relate to, what we've been talking about, what we've been sharing? I know earlier there was a question posed out about whether or not, how you are, if you have students going off to other universities or colleges or training programs, how are you connecting them into the Native community and or helping them prepare for living in a community outside of their Native community? And again, if you folks have any strategies that you tried, or maybe you've tried and it didn't work, that you want to share, that will help everyone. Also, I see in the chat, due to the pandemic, activities are very limited. Next week, our elementary school will have a parade, yay, drive-through style, where students get to wear or highlight their culture in different ways. Nice. Yeah, I know, it's been a challenge, right? COVID has definitely been a challenge to do all of the amazing activities that were normally done. But I love that you folks are thinking about different creative ways to still provide that. Okay, so as we wrap up here, I just want to sort of give you a heads up on upcoming events. Again, our next NYCP quarterly talking circle session will be on February 10th. Coming up next week is the National Native American Language Summit. You can go ahead and register at that link right there. Registration, there's no cost for registration. So it'll be, again, a great learning and hearing from all different types of Native American language programs. OIE will be presenting there as well. So you can come check us out. Also, the OIE office hours, the next one will be on November 17th, and then December 16th, and January 27th. Okay, we're going to have a quick poll popping up, an in-session poll to just let me know how this went for you. I really want to encourage you, because we have such a long sort of gap between, there's a quarter between this talking circle and the next. I would love to hear from you folks about maybe some topics you would like to discuss. So you could always put that in the chat or email the OIE at seiservices.com. There's the end of event poll, if you wouldn't mind taking that poll before we head out. We actually use this poll to determine, areas of improvement in our talking circle sessions. Again, if you have any ideas that pop in your head that you want to talk about with your peers, please go ahead and email us at oie at seiservices.com. Go ahead and give us some ideas, some maybe challenges you're having, and you'd like to sort of ask your peers how they're solving that challenge. Again, remember, November 17th, your budget revision is due, and you want to make sure you email that directly to Donna Bussell, and at the bottom is her email. And don't forget to check us out on Twitter at OIE Indian Ed. We are posting during the month of the National Native American Heritage Month. We're posting all kinds of information and events and activities that are going on. If there's something happening in your community that you'd like to highlight, you can go ahead and email oie at seiservices.com as well. Also, if you were able to attend yesterday's celebration, there was a Padlet that was created that you can go ahead and add your event there. It's just a great month to bring awareness, not just to our community, but to the larger community about the importance of Native American and Alaska Natives and the indigenous people of these lands. Again, yes.
I was just going to say, since we have our talking stick sessions with you every other month or so, or only a few times, we will have a talking. I'll hold the talking stick session in December, probably early in December, to go over quarterly reporting and any NCEs or FPRs that may be due, any type of questions. It's really going to be informal. I won't be as creative as Olani with all my nice slides, but we'll just have a quick little session to go over any types of questions and just for everyone to share kind of how their first and second quarter has been going.
Awesome. Thanks, Donna, for reminding everybody about that. I really want to make sure you take advantage of that opportunity. Alrighty. Again, thank you for your time. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. Thank you for your time. I hope everything was beneficial for you. I hope you all have a wonderful day and remaining part of your week. Take care. Aloha.